Good evening, everyone. Sorry for the delay. I welcome all of you to the day 4 session. And today's topics are, in the first session, sir will be discussing about patient recruitment and informed consent form process. And in the second session, overview of regulatory guidelines in USA, Europe, and India. And today's chairperson is Mr. Nasim Naik, sir, and resource person is Dr. Mohan Raj, sir. Sir is associate professor and working in Raipur College, Anantapur. So now I would like to invite today's chairperson, Mr. Nasim Naik, sir. Sir? Naik, sir?
Yes, madam.
Sir, please introduce resource person to participants, sir.
Okay, madam. Good evening to one and all. Thank you very much for giving opportunity to me. Myself, R. Narasimha Naik, Assistant Professor, Department of Pharmacology, Nirmala College of Pharmacy. It is a great pleasure to me to introduce today's resource person. He is none other than Dr. Mohan Raj Ratnavel. Sir has received his degree in Bachelor of Pharmacy in 2006 and his Doctor of Pharmacy in Post-Baccalaureate in 2011 in Pharmacy Practice field from Tamil Nadu Dr. MGR Medical University, Chennai. Sir has joined the Jawaharlal Nehru Technological University, Anantapur, the college Raghavendra Institute of Pharmaceutical Education and Research, Autonomous, where he teaches courses dealing with professional practice and patient care as associate professor and in charge in Department of Pharmacy Practice since November 2011. Sir has worked in various grades as an officer in production and manufacturing, in charge of GMP and GDP audits for 2 years in 2006 to 2008 in Baxter India Private Limited, Altur, Chennai, Tamil Nadu. Sir is well-known academic and resource person, researcher in field of pharmacy practice with nearly 45 research papers in both national and international journals and 38 presentations as resource persons or speaker. Sir has convened nearly 4 international conferences and 30 national conferences in AICTE sponsored FDP and STTP and presented 19 research papers as oral or poster in various national and international conferences. Sir research interest has pharmacoepidemiology and pharmacosurveillance in psychiatry and neurology, evidence-based medicine and practices, and microbial resistance. So this is the information related to today's resource person. Now I invite and hand over the session to the Mohan Raj sir. Sir, hearty welcome to you, sir, for today's sessions.
Yeah, so good evening. Thanks for the introduction.
Okay, thank you.
Am I audible? Please.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. You're audible, sir.
Thank you. Good. Could
Sir,
I
small request, sir.
Yeah.
Before starting the session, I would request all the participants to switch on their videos, sir, so that we can take screenshot and upload it in ATAL portal.
Sure, madam. Sure, I do.
I request all the participants switch on the videos, please. Yes, sir. Now you can continue, sir. Thank you, sir.
Could I share the screen, madam?
Yes, sir. You are co-host, so you can share screens.
Thank you. Whether the screen is visible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's visible, sir.
Yeah, madam. Thank you. So, very thank you to all the delegates to be on time by, I think, 7 o'clock. And it's my professional obligation to convey my sincere thanks to K. Maria Sundari, Chief Patron, G. Nirmala Jyoti, Patron, Professor Abdul Rahman, Principal, and Professor Vinay Kumar, staff, management, and students of Nirmala College of Pharmacy, Andhra Pradesh, for giving me an opportunity to share my view during this ACT-sponsored faculty development program on the novel and contemporary research and clinical research and clinical trials. And a very warm greetings from Raghavendra Institute of Pharmaceutical Education and Research, Raipur Autonomous. So the organizing committee has given me 3 sections to be covered. And one is regarding patient recruitment in clinical research. And the 2 is the informed consent process. And 3rd is regarding the regulatory agencies on new drug approval process in United States, Europe, and India. So for the very first part, I like to share my views on patient recruitment in clinical research and clinical trials. So before getting into the topic, I want to give you an insight of the previous presentations for the past 3 days, which may be easily correlating with the present lecture. So as all of us are aware, clinical research is a study to evaluate the effect of one or more health-related interventions on human participant. And clinical research can be of 2 aspects, observational and interventional studies. And the studies conducted in clinical research are called clinical trials. Obviously, the clinical research or the trial focus on testing a drug or intervention to determine the dosage, efficacy, and safety. And this is a prima facie of the clinical trials, what we perform, where the investigator conduct a very small pilot study and subsequently they enroll a patient for large-scale comparative study, depending on the type of a study, on the product, what we do the research. So this clinical trial, which are performed, involve the collection or acquisition of medical and scientific data regarding the safety profile, effectiveness, and efficacy of a new intervention, inclusive of patients. Thus, patient recruitment is a very crucial part of clinical trials. So getting into today's topic regarding patient recruitment in clinical trial, as for...
Sir, sorry to interrupt. Sir,
Please.
can you just slide show the slides, sir?
Okay.
So participants, it's not visible to me.
Now is it okay?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Sorry, sir.
So as for we are aware, the clinical trial patient recruitment process is a multi-step process, and obviously it is a complicated or a complex process. And for an entire trial or a research to assess an outcome, the very intervention what will depend either on diagnosis, treatment, or prevention of disease explores a multiple determinant which involves patient recruitment process. And this particular recruitment process is going to define the risk or benefit of the particular study. And conceptually, enhancing a recruitment and retention is going to be a hallmark of a particular clinical trial to be more successful. And a recent survey, which has been released by Forbes in 2017, have communicated that in the clinical trial, patient recruitment is one of very top 3rd pain point for a researcher. And now, the whole outcome of a clinical research is dependent and more inclusive on patient recruitment. And as far as concerned, patient recruitment is a very painful and a complex process in the clinical research. So the very question in the developing country particularly arises, so why is such an important element of clinical research is also one of the most difficult to execute. So to answer this, we have to explore what are all the best practices which are more inclusive to develop and implement successful recruitment practices, and what are all the beneficial strategies which enhance and build, prevent the under-enrollment in the clinical research or the trial. So to explore the best practices and the better strategies, we must have certain development focus build for a successful enrollment strategy, which is one of what we can say a lacuna where developing countries like India are facing a lot. So there are mainly 4 important standard steps which has to be followed to develop a successful enrollment strategy. The very first thing, the step 1, which relies on the entire research team, where they have to focus on determining the feasibility of carousel of the particular clinical trial or the research. Once the feasibility, which we have worked across the background by the research team, is being workable or beneficial for the particular population, and is being given consent by the sponsor and the primary investigator. The very next step we follow on building an advertising strategy. And building an advertising strategy, which is a very second step, is very important. Why? Because it is a basement or a platform based on which we can develop the recruitment campaign, and this recruitment campaign outcome has to be tracked for the progress. So the further step will be step 3 and 4. Step 3 is launching your recruitment campaign, and step 4 is tracking your progress. So all this 4 step runs parallelly in terms of correlation aspect, and all these 4 are going to define the outcome of the particular research, and patient recruitment thus considered as the hallmark of clinical research or the trial. So we get into a detail or debriefing of 4 eventful steps side by side. So the step 1 is determining the feasibility, where this particular step is completely in the hands of the research team, the investigator, and the sponsor, and the working area or the platform. And feasibility is going to be relating to whether the study can be taken up or not. And if it has to be taken up, we have to elaborate what be the type of study and what be the number of required participants, which may be very helpful in the preparation of the protocol. And the very third thing is we have to get into the pre-feasibility analysis. So we depend on those studies which have been performed earlier in the same demographical or geographical or pharmacotherapeutic area. So what the third one is available number of patients to recruit, or they have an eligibility to get recruited. And when all these things have been completed, the fourth important streamline is to screen those patients, whether the research team is enabled, capable, and they are expert in knowledge communication and preparation of a protocol. And they are well versed in making communication to the public or the population in need, in whom we are going to perform the particular clinical trial or the research. So, determining feasibility, we have to perform four important subcategories. We can explore those things. And one of the very important thing in determining the feasibility of the clinical research is the organization to who, organization to where, in which the study is going to be carried out. And it is always related to the medicals and associates who are involved in the research. So the very first thing is whatever the fact, evidences, or data are available, we have to explore those databases to find out the earlier, previous, or present potential participant. And number two, to perform this activity, we must have a very good rapport, or we must not have any gaps. So it has to be filled. For bridging those gaps for the particular research, the area physicians has to be engaged a lot and lot. And once we have planned to explore the EMR and we are having a very a good team of physicians, the very thing is we have to assess the past enrollment performance in the particular organization, which is related to the number of participants enrolled and previous participant enrolled, and what is the percentage of enrollment already met, and what is the opinion or open enrollment forward we are going to plan. And once this is a plan, what the particular research team is working on, they have to be very related to the sponsor in making some questions to be clarified. Why? Because sponsors are very important for clinical research, and this can be easily explored by performing an SWOT analysis. So these are all the basic thing whenever we want to streamline the EMR for searching the data fact. So the very important step in determining the feasibility is whenever we want to analyze the electronic medical record, ensure that whatever the data or fact we are obtaining has been already with approval of either the institutional ethics committee of the hospital or the so-and-so organization or the institutional review board. And the particular board or the committee has been having a very potential team of qualified personalities involved in the previous process. And the very important thing where EMR search is going to answer is three questions. Number one is accrue the required number of participants. That is, how many participants are made beneficial with the previous study, and how long was the study, and reasonably the potential participant data fact like explanation of the merit and demerit of the study, and what was the percentage of the willingness. All the studies can be explored by reviewing the electronic medical record of the particular organization. And number two, through this, it will give you give a numeric value of the population which is feasible to be para-produced in the particular research what we are planning. So whenever we want to make a search of an EMR, there is a certain tips we have to make is make competing studies of the requirement is very, very useful. Means compare the present protocol preparation and the goal of the study, or how we have defined the research problem, and we compare with the previous evidences of the organization or previous studies which have been performed, and we review the protocols of the previous studies for the inclusion and exclusion. And if those inclusions have been resulted in a good population, what are all the methods they have followed in analyzing and calculating the particular sample. And all these things are very important to be streamlined during feasibility. And this can be done only by screening the electronic medical record of the particular organization, which gives you the path to determine whether the study is feasible or not. And number two is physicians to be engaged for this EMR purpose. Why? Because they have been considered as an epicenter for patient recruitment. Why? Because they have a very good bridging between the patient, and there will be immense support for us to enroll the qualified patient. So word engage the area physician is also enhance the feasibility of performing the particular study. And they also give you the details of patients who are current, who are referred, who are outpatient, and all the things will support us to presume the protocol, which may be good in enhancing the population of the particular research. And once feasibility we are planning is able to be positively upgraded through the first two steps of feasibility. And the very important thing is a comparison of the metrics of the feasibility, which have been done previously, and how will have drastic potential effect on the current trial or the research. So for this particular information we want to communicate as a person in the research team is to give a very factual information to the particular sponsor of the research or the organization, because it is going to put up the monetary requirement of the particular clinical trial, and also in what ways a patient has to be benefited with all their needs and the demand to be satisfied. So on the base of a monetary aspect, it is a very significant step to assess the past enrollment performance in terms of metric. And those metrics must answer the following questions, like how many total participants would be made beneficial in the previous trial, and whether the previous trial met the target enrollment, or to attain the beneficial population, what was the timeline or the duration it took, and if at all the deadline of the accrual is being means broke, what were the reason for the delay, whether the process of recruitment is very slow or it is very, very low, and are there any failures in the screening of the patient recruitment, or whether there was a failure in campaigns of recruitment, or if it has been underutilized. So the past enrollment performance will be giving answer to all these important 6 questions. And this 6 questions, when we are able to get a very correct answer, this 6 question answer will be able to design a monetary or financial aspect, which will be very good in satisfying the demand of the patient and their demand needs. So what the recruitment process will be enhanced a lot and lot. And if everything the research team has been done, the final processing will be done by the sponsor. So what the sponsors are liable and answerable to make certain changes, or they have to discuss with the research team in terms of the previous study trial, the deadline, and how many sites the trials were being conducted. And the very important thing, what was budget in the last previous financial year of any other studies performed there. So what the sponsor had to go for a thorough auditing on all the liable factors. And once this particular sponsor determinant are being assessed properly in terms of a previous research, the sponsor may help the research team in giving some suggestion which may boost the advertising status. And for our update, we can go for a website called clinicaltrial.gov, where if at all we want to learn a lot about the research being performed earlier, either in middle income country, low middle income country, or high income country, please visit the website called clinicaltrials.gov. So it gives a complete information on the previous clinical trial, execution of the recruitment, and all the in-loss, off-loss will be detailed for each trial in the particular website. So once a feasibility from the sponsors are being made, the very important thing we have to do is SWOT analysis. So we have to explain the strength, weakness, opportunities, and the threat of the particular research, not only to the sponsor. The investigator has to take the pain in elaborating this to each and every member of the particular clinical research team, where they have to discuss regarding what are all the strength of the particular research and how the protocol has been detailed, and which area of research we are going to focus. That is particularly diagnostic or therapeutic area, and what was the previous research outcomes, and what are all the advantages and disadvantages of the previous study, and whether those limitations of the previous studies are being overcome in our particular study as to be detailed, and that is going to replicate the strength of the particular trial, which may enhance the recruitment process of the patient. Why? Because each and every person of the research team will be getting informed about the particular trial, and so on. They can build up a very good communication with the population of patient, explaining the merit and demerit of the particular research. Thereby, each and every person becomes a resource for a patient, and they can share all the information to the patient and make the patient more and more understandable with more good a percentage of retention, which will be enhanced. And the same way, the weakness is also very important for the research. Mainly, the weakness relies on number one is a budgeting, number two is population of enrollment, and assess portion of the patient. Means what were the reasons for the limitations of the decline of population of the previous study, and whether it is going to continue in our study. Means we have to justify the particular limitation. So as like strength, we have to justify the weakness of the research in terms of data acquisition or the resource management or the financial aspect. We are going to elaborate these things also as a weakness to the complete research team, and getting approval from the sponsor and the head of the organization to move forward to perform the research. And a very important thing in the particular feasibility is opportunities. So what are all the benefits of the particular research, and what are all the risks, and what are all the initiatives we have taken to outweigh the risk and achieve the maximum benefit of the particular protocol for the clinical research study. So any tangible database development or health system management can be explored, which was not existing in the previous research. So we can considerably explore the platform of new opportunities, and that will be discussed with the team. And the very last one is threat. So threat in terms of the new area what we are focusing, or new population we are focusing, or therapeutic area what we are going to focus. So this, why? Because if any research is more and more primarily done, or the first study, we may have more amount of limitations over the study. So it is very important to presume the threat before writing the protocol of the particular thing. So with this, we can make sure that the research will be feasible to perform, thereby the requirement strategies can be increased or developed. And parallelly, another important step we have to be focusing in is building an advertising strategy. Why? Because whatever we do, a background work or a groundwork in making the portfolio or the protocol to be more feasible, to whom this is going to be made. So who's the target audience? We have to craft the right strategy. Why? Because to that particular population alone, we are going to make more amount of viable, meaningful communication. So we have to build a strategy for communication, which could be made when we are able to specify who are our audience. So whenever we craft the audience, we have to clearly establish 6 things in our step 2 is define your target audience, develop messaging that resonate with your audience, establish your online advertising database, create compelling and valuable content, know where to put your advertising material, and deliver a very clear call to action. So there's a very important 6 strategies we have to follow, where it builds a very good advertisement and ensure it reaches a targeted audience more and more beneficially. And once you have fixed your ideal participation, we have to ensure that not to limit our reach too much. So not to go for more amount of cut down of information, where whenever there is a cut down of information, whenever we plan for advertising, the maximizing of effectiveness will be a limitation. So very important thing, whenever we have planned for a targeted audience, the very important thing we have to plan is not to cut off any information. We have to maximize the information, and those information which we maximize, we have to try or put our effort in enhancing the effectiveness of those information. Why? Because if the effectiveness of informations are good, the understandability and the retention will be more whenever we are making a communication more effectively. Whenever there is more effective communication with more amount of understanding and retention of the student, or patient, the requirement process is going to be simplified, and we get a good amount of population into our particular study. So don't go narrow, don't cut out any information, maximize information, but make sure they are very simple, concise, and realistic, and it is very good of understanding, thereby it improves the retention of the information of the particular population, and it enhances the recruitment of the patient into the particular research work we are planning. So one of the very important tips which being given by This is a particular tip which I have derived from AACP. And this particular tip is also been followed in terms of Indian clinical trial organizations. And number one, and very first thing, whenever we are making an advertising strategy, ensure that we keep aside the emotion of the particular information what we are communicating. So the emotions will confront the information. It limits the communication toward keep aside the emotion whenever we are advertising the particular information. And number two, the information what we communicate must ensure build a trust in the patient in the near future whenever they receive the information. So what if trust is not there, if we are failed to build the trust, it is sure that the advertising strategies are having a very big lacuna. So where the requirement process is not going to be standardized or it is not going to get increased a lot and lot. And why I'm specifying this is building a trust. This is a very main limitation in the very next section what we are going to discuss, and that is called as informed consent process, particularly in Indian setting we are going to discuss. The word, the very important limitation of advertising strategies in a clinical trial, which declines the recruitment process, will be failure of building the trust with the patient regarding the communication of information. And the very third is whenever we communicate, try to have a very numeric of perceptions, where there's a very important social proof of how well the informations are being at a reach point to the population while in demand. And apart from this, professionally, whenever we want to communicate the information, the advertising must be out of box. So not all the informations are going to be clinical, and it must not have more amount of terminologies. We have to think out of box, which makes them very easy to understand about the information what we give. For example, we can go to Google Ads with many number of pictorial presentations and preparation of brochures and prepare our own blog spot, make a flyer, many things where it is going to give all the appropriate information, but there is no commotion of information in terms of more clinical aspects. It must be on a better understanding. So with this few imbalance steps, I think we can build a very effective strategy. And once the strategy are very clear with us, the very important step of third one is launching our recruitment campaign, which is very important in the recruitment process, where in developing country it is a limitation. Why? Because here is a step where we are going to spend a lot of money for the complete research. So what now, due to the technocratic improvement, which has been also experienced in developing country, potential organizations which are performing the research are very keen in budgeting the monetary, and they are well planned on setting the fund properly for launching the advertisement. For example, they get into paid ads, social media, Google ad, local TV, magazines, radio, print materials, and Google AdWords. So in all this thing, the very recent development of launching the recruitment campaign is Google AdWords, which we are making it. But all these things are somewhat costly. But if you want to go to save the budget, we have certain low-cost free resources like organic social media, which is also a part of Google, SEO, a part of Google, and one of the very important thing what the research team can take over is email campaigns. For example, it is like a survey methodologies. and the word of mouth. These two things are not cost, it is free, but organic social media and SEO or it is a cost, but in comparison to the previous things like Google AdWords or Google Ad magazine or radio, this organic social media and SEO are of very low cost. So better tip for launching your requirement campaign. Number one, more and more creativity in making the campaign. And regularly the blogspot or the website of our research portfolio has to be updated. And whenever we are on a pre-launch, each and every member of our team has to be pre-communicated internally. And they have to take the very responsibility to make it socially explored through ads and posts. And the very important thing is, all if at all to be done, we have to make sure that whenever we want to launch a requirement campaign, the very important thing, we have to get an approval from the sponsor, and it has to be co-acknowledged from the investigator. So the very tip for launching the requirement campaign is specifically be very vague, all right, including specific website, social media, physical location, wherever is possible, be very, very vague on giving the information, and don't limit the information whenever you are going to communicate. 4 A's about the tracking process. So the tracking process is a very important milestone to assess the progress. So the very important part of progress is how well the assessment is being scheduled, which investigate the perception of the campaigns. So it is a complete and organizational capacity of the particular research team to find out to what extent the conversion rate have increased. Conversion rate is nothing but to what level the perceptions have increased from a day 1 to day 2, day 3 of advertising the particular clinical research campaign. So the advertising aspect, it is a day 1, day 2, day 3. There must be no decline. There must be an uphill movement of informations reaching the particular population. And the very important goal of this progress is you must make sure the particular trial what we are going to make will achieve the correct number of population. And once the correct number of population to be achieved, the one thing is advertising strategy build up, and advertising campaign decentralization is a very important aspect. When these 2 milestones have been achieved, we can ensure that the conversion rate is being tangibly attained. Thereby, we can believe that the requirement process is going to be very well accounted for the particular important step. So these are also then progress, how you can track the particular conversion. So it is nothing but the numeric or the number of the influx what we planned is achieved or not. And whether all this type of information we have been communicated, to what extent it have reached the frequency, whether it is directly reached or through an indirect means. So what is the numeric of primary and secondary observation of informations? So to enhance your progress, the first thing is whatever the resources are important for you to build, advertise, communicate, we have to ensure those resources are immensely made available. Number 2 is the conversion rate is just a numeric day on day. So there must be a very clear pre-screening process. Third one is the turning of the funnel. The turning of the funnel is nothing but we are not able to achieve the level at the day 2, as like what we have planned. It is not that we have to continue the same process. We have to sort out what are all the limitations on the decline of day 1, day 2 responses. So what this is called turning up funnel, and this is highly practiced in developed country as a very important criteria to track the progress. And the very final thing is avoid the recruitment disaster by limiting the misconception about the particular research and the portfolio or the protocol. So in conclusion, recruiting participants can be a very difficult process. But starting with a well thought out plan and optimizing the effort of the team and the organization within the timeline with more amount of budget will be a top notch of enhancing the recruitment. And apart from that, whenever the recruitment process is being performed, the very cornerstone is tracking the records of the previous and comparing with the current. So once we are not making this comparison effectively, the strategy which we build may decline and resulting to a disaster of pre-acclaimed recruitment process. So in all this 4 steps, the one of more time consuming, more amount of complicated process is the third one is called as advertising campaign. So we have to look into the process, how far the advertisements can reach the population in comparison to increasing the health technology resources as of done now in developed countries. So thank you for your patience listening. And it is all about a section 1, a patient recruitment. So if any doubts are there, we can get it, or else I can go for the next presentation called as informed consent process. Please.
If participants are having any questions, they can ask directly, or you can post it in the chat box.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, ma'am. Yes.
This is Prashant Kumari, sir.
Yeah, ma'am.
If clinical trial is carried out on medical devices, what is the criteria for patient or human subjects recruitment? What are the guidelines we have to follow?
Yeah, actually, this is a very good question. Actually, in India, there is only one medical device trial which has been started in All India Institute of Medical Sciences, and they are following the guidelines as for given by the FDA, and particularly they follow Association of American Medical Physicians, AAMPS is the guidelines they do follow for the recruitment. And now in the process of medical devices in AIMS, they are in the process of building the protocol, and they have not initiated any recruitment strategy. And one of my better knowledge, I have a chief pharmacist working in AIMS Delhi, and he's also one of a monitor of the particular research. And once we discussed about this, we told that we're not planned any guidelines for it, and whatsoever has been followed in United States regulatory, the same thing we have been kickstarted there. So now in India, we don't have particularly any trial going on medical devices. That is a correct information.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Anyone else from participants?
Good evening.
Yeah, please.
Actually, what are the resources from where we can find the currently recruiting trial related information?
That's what, sir. Actually, I will share you clinical trial .gov. There is a very
Okay, so in that, like across the globe, you can find all
Yeah,
the.
yes, sir, yes, sir. So what I think I've given in the slide number 14. So you can go on to clinicaltrials.gov and
Okay.
you can search all the institutions across the globe. What are all the studies going on and what are all the methodologies they do adopt for enrollment of patient in their particular study. So there will be no generalized portfolio for enrollment. You can find very specific information. So there will be
Okay.
no generalizability in that particular.
Okay. Okay. But we have discussed about this, I mean, recruitment related, I mean, marketing related strategy, right? So, so that might be advertised in some hospitals as well. So I thought,
Yeah,
like, if there is any common resource from where we can find that information. And also one more thing, sir, while recruiting, like,
yeah,
is some of the sponsor, I mean, the recruiting related agencies or something,
yeah.
like, if they have misled the patient, and then they have taken the patient as a clinical candidate for the trial, then what will be the rights of that, rights of the, I mean, the patient who has recruited in the trial?
Yes, sir. So what the very thing is, the very first question I would like to answer is about launching your recruitment campaign. So it means that whenever we want to make our research to be advertised, and through the advertisement portfolio, we are going to assess the recruitment process. The very first and foremost is we go very professionally with all the medical, particularly, please. So particularly, I'm saying in comparison to developed country, in terms of a developing country, what we highly rely is in the developed country, there are specialized magazines for medical research publications in terms of trials, and they be considered as a primary resources. In the primary resources, we have a separate paper for portfolio of upcoming trials or ongoing trial. Number two is, if you compare in developing country, we do have no primary resources publishing those informations. So what I have already told you, and in my 22nd slide, I have differentiated you all the information about the advertisement portal, which is paid, which is paid with the least amount, and which is of free resources. So the very thing is, whenever we have a portfolio or a protocol prepared, which has been acknowledged by the sponsor, the responsibility of the sponsor is to send all this information to the broadcasting agencies and get the approval of broadcasting, and they'll be given a SC3 number, and with that SC3 number, we can go for demanding any types of complaint if the informations are duplicated by other organizations. So that is ethics and the law oriented on information misconception. And number two is, it is up to the organizations which you say the mislead of patient. So what up to now, mislead of informations are not, up to my knowledge, I'm saying, they are not making it. Why? Because a lot of money we are going to make as an input in this. So what it will be completely cryptographically performed, where no organization get involved in divulgating or misconception the information. If been done, it will be unlawful. And up to my knowledge, I have not gone through any type of mislead of information.
Okay, thanks for answering my question, sir. And one more question, like, if you are recruiting for any trial related to nutraceutical related products,
Yes, sir.
it means like some healthy related volunteers can also participate in that. So
Yeah.
if it is for the diseased one, like, we can understand that particular disease related patient, you have any way inclusion exclusion criteria to recruit those patients. But in case of healthy related patients, if you want to do any nutraceutical, if there like what will be the criteria you have to recruit in such condition?
No, sir. If it is a nutraceuticals, particularly in a healthy patient, it will not come as a clinical trial or research. So what research in the trial will focus only on an intervention, comparing the effectiveness, efficacy of the particular intervention. The intervention may be a therapeutical intervention or it may be a diagnostic intervention.
Okay. Sometimes you also give the combinations, even though if you take, I mean, the generalized nutraceutical related products like.
No, that will be an observational studies. It may
Okay.
not be trial oriented. And that will be of a short-term period, and that
Okay.
will be having an organization sponsorship. For example, you can take some toothpaste. We have IQVIA trademark research is there. So it is a product-oriented observational studies will be done.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Thanks, sir, for being patient and answering all my questions. Thank you very
sure,
much.
sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else will participate? If any other questions, you can drop it in the chat box so we can proceed from this.
Okay, so I stop share and I get into another presentation, madam.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Or yes, stop it. Yes.
Sir, do you want break or you want to start, sir?
It is up to you, sir. If you want, I can continue, or else.
Yeah, sir. You can continue, sir, because already it is
8 o'clock, sir.
8 o'clock. We
Yeah.
can complete wind it up by 9.
Yes, sure.
Yeah. Okay, sir. Thank you.
Very next thing we get into is regarding informed consent. So, madam, whether it is visible for you?
Yes, sir. It is visible. Can you switch to slideshow, sir?
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
So now it is visible, right, madam?
Yes, sir. It is visible, sir.
So, dear participant, we get into the next section of the presentation, where we focus this on ICF, informed consent process, where we will be debriefing about the international perspective and national perspective. And also we'll be discussing on a meaningful informed consent means what, and whether it has been followed in a developing country like India or not, and if not, how else it can be improved. So these are some finest point which I will summarize during this session. So all we are aware that informed consent process is a cornerstone of ethic and clinical research. This is a very important thing which we all are aware. But the very thing we have to be well aware is this informed consent when we are obtaining from a patient who are participating in clinical research is not only a cornerstone of ethics, it is also a legalized aspect of clinical trial research. And this important process in clinical research rely on two things. One is effectiveness and validity of information, what we are communicating to the particular patient. So as of the evidence is informed consent process provides a very essential information regarding the trial, and it empowers the participant with more amount of knowledge and information. It reduces the complexity of understanding, thereby the rationale of the particular study, that is the merit and the demerit, they will come to know very clearly. But this complete task is very challenging in developing countries. Why? Because the very first thing is patient have a very lesser adults complaints. And number two is they have very fear to take part in the particular study. So there will be not willingness to get into the study. And particularly, since 30% of our country, particularly I'm saying about India, it is a semi-urbanized area, and we have nearly only 20 to 28% of urbanized area, and the remaining is rural area. This rural population and semi-urbanized population have a very decreased access to medical care. For example, if you want to have a very correct evidence, you can get into a World Health Organization policy and practice perspective, where we can say the main root cause of decline in health is access, affordability, and adequacy. So we can also relate the access, affordability, and adequacy of the medicine as information regarding the trial what we are subjecting to the patient. This is also very, very less in developing country like India. So it is very important, therefore, to investigate the particular limitations of why the informed consent is not more appropriately executed in developing setting, and how well it can be enhanced. Thereby, participation requirement will be more with more amount of understanding. But the very battling question in Indian perspective is limited resources in terms of healthcare resources, infrastructure, literacy. These are all the very important three battling situations in developing country, particularly in India, where we are not able to make a very proper, effective informed consent exploration within the population. So in this study, in this presentation, we'll discuss those challenges, and also we'll try to explore the possibilities to enhance the consent process very effectively. So this is called as a meaningful triad, where competence, information disclosure, comprehension, voluntariness has to be put in a single line, where all this parametric are very, very essential. And this will influence the individual patient to make decision on their own. And the success of informed consent is autonomous decision. So whenever an autonomous decision has to be taken by the particular individual patient, the decision rely on four important criteria: the disclosure of information, what we make to them, and what they learn from them in their understanding with better knowledge, and there is a comprehension which enhance their voluntariness, thereby the competence of the trial will be improved. So a meaningful and informed consent must lead to autonomous decision making by the patient who show their complete willingness to the study, which depends on information disclosure, comprehension, voluntariness, and competence. If these four are on equilibrium, we can say the consent is going to be a success consent with more amount of effective meaning. So now we get into the challenges. Particularly here the focus is a developing country, not the developed country. So the focus in terms of challenges will be three: research team, patient, and the document which we prepare to communicate and get the consent. So informed consent document. So research team, the very first limitation is the technique what they take forward to communicate is not enabling the patient or the population to understand and written and show the interest. So the poor communication technique. Number two, lack of time for the consent process. It is not that you give a consent application and take the answer immediately. You have to give more amount of time, not to cut off, make a timeline, all right? But what we do is we make a cutoff, we put a timeline. So the consent process is going to be not giving a good response or willingness we can't obtain very seriously. And the third one, in the recession, we are not able to detect this particular lacuna, why they are not responding or willing to participate in the particular study. And then we are not explaining the complete demerits of the study. All right, we foreharm only the legal aspect of the study. This is on part, the limitation can be called as the challenges of the research too. With the patient, the very thing we discussed, we have more amount of illiteracy. And we have very less access to healthcare sector. Surely the patient will be not feeling good to reach hospital. So the very first limitation is anxiety and fear of new procedures. Number two, health status. They are not getting into hospital for any disease. If they get into this hospital, the very thing they will be diagnosed. So there is a fear they do have in their status of health. And number three is cognition impairment. Particularly, we can see this in elderly geriatric patients or neurological patients. And right now, India is a hub for endocrine disease. And also now, recent survey say that there is more amount of stress the population is moving. So that also we have to keep in mind. And the very thing is, no patient except they suffer disease. And this particular trial, with which they involve, there may be a chance of exploring the possibility to find out the therapeutical equivalent. So they deny their disease state. It is a limitation within the patient. And the very important, apart from the patient, and one of another inclusive of the research team is build of informed consent document. So we have more medical terminologists. Surely they are not going to understand. We use more amount of universal language, particularly English. It is very complex for them to understand. And lengthy consent document. For example, this is a current status. For example, this is also a limitation which we found in our own hospital when we started that FAMD project in the year of 2011, 12. The consent form, whenever we get the permission from a patient, we prepared like 2 to 3 pages. So what the consent form are lengthy, willingness are very, very less. So what then we pre-formulated, and now the consent process is very smooth. And we have 1-page consent form where we explore both the merit and demerit to the particular patient. We are informing them only in their language known to them. This is a way to cut off the lengthy of the document. So if these are all the challenges, particularly we are concentrating on India. These challenges have been now worked by the Indian regulatory authorities, the investigator, ethics committee of hospital, who works on quality and ethical way of performing a trial. And they are pre-formulating a very stringent regulations. And also it is there on a current upgradation. So informed consent in India, the main challenge is whatever we have discussed also join in hands with more population on poverty, illiteracy, low socioeconomic condition. These three are also considered as a cornerstone of deficit informed consent standardization in India, which also clubbed together with patient limitation, informed consent document limitation, and the research fee limitation. But out of all these things, the very important limitation, which in India we faces more amount of illiteracy, more amount of poverty, and more amount of declined socio-economic population. So we have a larger amount of socio-economic population, which are deprived of, with their lesser GDP of the daily income, and that is also one of the reasons. For example, I have here a few recent research published, which correlate with our previous study finding, and most of the research are done in India and been published in reputed journals. So the very first example which I put forward you is research performed by ATAL on willingness to participate in a clinical trial and understanding of informed consent information among medical students. So while this is not a study in a population of illiterate or poverty or low socioeconomic people, this is with the educated people, and they are medical college students. So the perception was being assessed how well they know about informed consent process and what is their understanding. So the study revealed that students were not able to recall the study drug name and adverse effect mentioned in the consent form. So it is an educated people who are in the field of medicine, and they are not able to retain in their brain about the informed consent done for what type of study, what is the drug involved, and if the consent is being not made forcefully, and what happens to the adversity of the population involved. These are all the limitations, not in illiterate peoples of developing India. It is a limitation which we found in literate medical student. And that was the very first study we want to point out regarding the informed consent process in India. And number two is a community-based trial in a very rural North India, performed by D. Costa et al., published in the year of 24 in the Journal of Medical Ethics. So this study, we're giving more amount of limitations regarding the clinical trial in terms of rural people. So what they forecasted is they are not able to make any decision on their own, either to participate or not to participate in the clinical trial, number one. Number two, most of the women are not able to believe these studies will benefit them in terms of disease or therapeutic equivalent. And the very important thing is paternalistic relationship between the doctor and patient was very, very less. It means none of the patient believe the medical system in which the study is performed will result in benefit to them. So these are all the three eventual findings in 24 we found in North India, that were very particular rural North India, where number one is they are not able to take any autonomous decision. Number two, no women believe those decisions will enable them with more therapeutical benefit. And third one is none of them had trust in the research performed. The trial will execute a development, and they are not relying on the merit or demerit explained by the doctor. Why? And it also showcases this happened. Why? Because The consent obtained from them was very few. And this few is made due to the very limitations of information of research. So they are not able to detail the information for a better understanding within the patient. And the very third one is also from India, evaluation of the ability of clinical research participant to comprehend the informed consent. And that was published in Contemporary Clinical Trial in the year of 29, performed by Bansali. And the studies from central India, where the report showed that only 50% of informed consent content explained to them. It means informed consent was having more difficulty of the information, with more difficult of information. In that, 150% was elaborated, and no steady information was common language. It was having more amount of medical terminologies like blinding, randomization, placebo, etc. So none of them responded to the consent. The document was a document of a bigger smile. And another one is a very quantitative study. How informed is informed consent? It is a South Indian study published in Indian Journal of Medical Ethics, performed by Kumar et al., which highlighted the understanding of the information in the consent was very poor. And the doctor's attitude in explaining them was very less, and it also provoked a more fear determinant in the patient. The patient were not interested in participating in the particular research or the study. So highlighted issues in Indian informed consent is diminished autonomy, influence of reference groups, paternalistic attitude towards doctors, implicit trust in medical community. So in Indian aspect, the very important challenges highlighted through research evidences performed previously was diminished autonomy. So the decision was not a self-decision. It is a decision in comparison with the groups of people or the community. And the attitude of the doctors towards the patient was not appreciated. So they have no trustworthy on the medical community. So those were the challenges. So what those research recommended, how this can be enhanced. It is only the responsibility of a doctor to enhance the relationship. And this must improve the participation of the patient. It can be through creating an ideal environment of informed consent process. And this informed consent process, to be made ideal, the patient must be given free air of consent. So we have to let them, after explaining, to ask us a lot and lot. And we have to explain to them a lot many times. Ensure they have understood, assess their retention. So our doctor will be recognized from the patient point of view. So now to increase the strategies of informed consent process, what we have to do. Number one, simplify the documents of informed consent. Prepare the documents through only flush Kincaid scale. So flush Kincaid scale is a scale which shows you whether the information, the language of the document is complex or it is readable, simple of understanding. To the extent a user brochures, patient information leaflet, do an audio video visuals, make a multimedia visuals, and don't cut off the time, discuss a lot with the patient, spend more time with the patient, and help them in their decision. So not to force them, assist them in making a very fruitful decisions. So what the very finest thing which I want to communicate is how we can simplify the informed consent document. It is not only for the clinical trial, it is also for any type of clinical project which we carry over in an organization. So number one is the language must be simplified. So whenever possible, write the short title of the consent and the research term. And give those short title where it shows us very familiarity, understanding within the patient. Number two, make the document not more congested. Let it be a free space for them to learn and write some suggestions. Use heading, subheading to reduce the density of the information. Nowhere write information on paragraphs. Give a list, write in a bulletin. Avoid medical terminology wherever and whenever possible. For example, we write edema. All right, edema is a clinical term, so what you can write a bulging or swelling. Transdermal, under the skin. So like this, take the terminology, put up for a better understanding, which is operational to the patient. And don't write the sentences more than 12 words. And whenever you write a paragraph, you must not write. If you write, keep it very, very concise, not exceeding 7 lines, each line not more than 12 words. And whatever you print must be a easy to read print. Ensure each paragraph only convey one idea. Means the very thing is not to write paragraph. If you write paragraph, make it 7 lines, each line 12 words, and this must convey only one information, not more information. And whenever you write, please grammatically ensure you are writing on active voices, not in passive voices. And write in such a way the way you talk. Don't get into more grammar. So whatever easy you speak, the same thing you can write. And use always personal pronoun like us, we, you, like this you use a personal pronoun. Avoid complex, unfamiliar word. And whenever you write some terms, if at all you have abbreviation, list abbreviation initial. And whenever you give information, write the information of priority at the first, all right? And then avoid not only medical term, avoid research terms. Wherever possible, use a residential terminologies of measurement like teaspoon, tablespoon, not like ounce or ml or nothing. Consider, if at all you are not able to give the information in a paragraph of 7 lines, each having 12 words, a very better way is schematically present or dramatically present with a graph or illustration or a diagram. If these things have been followed, I think informed consent will be a continuous dynamic process rather than an isolated unicentric event in the clinical research. So informed consent process must be a process where knowledge acquisition built on better understanding, on a best retention capacity is a basic objective of a meaningful, better informed consent process where the need of our Indian clinical research is to make inclusive of all the suggestions given by the researchers of Indian setting and make the strategy more novel, thereby the discrepancies or the deficiencies of the previous have been overcome, and we can make the patient enjoy more benefit of getting participated in the particular clinical research. So this is about the informed consent process section. for the day. So what, if any doubts are there, please.
If participants are having any doubts, you can ask, sir.
Please.
Sir, you would like to take 5 minutes break, sir, or
Yeah, ma'am. We can have a 5-minute break and then we can join.
yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So, dear participants, am I audible? Madam, am I audible, madam?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You're audible, sir.
Dear participants, the last session will be started within a few minutes. So it won't be much, it won't take much more time, just within 15 to 20 minutes, sir will wind it off. So today I could see only around 30 participants have been joined in the session. So dear participants, please join the sessions because the speakers they are from all over India. They are taking the sessions for this ATAL FDP. And also I would like to inform you one thing, that day after tomorrow, Saturday, is the last date for the online sessions for online FDP. For online sessions, so tomorrow, day after tomorrow, that is on the 10th of September is the last date. So after completion of the last day session, that is on the 10th, so you will be having, all the participants, you will be having one MCQ exam. So that exam will be for 20 marks. You will be given 30 minutes to complete it. So as per the guidelines of ATAL FDP, so 80% of weightage have been given to the attendance. So every participant must be attend at least 75% of the sessions, and further they are giving the more weightage. And after that, the weightage will be given to the exam, that is direct assessment, MCQ exam. So there will be 2 MCQ evaluation tests will be there. So one MCQ evaluation test will be conducted day after tomorrow on the coming Saturday. So you will be receiving that exam link. The exam link will be shared only in the Zoom only. It will be not shared in the WhatsApp group. So please note it down. So that's why don't miss the session which is going to be conducted in the on the Saturday, right? So after clicking on the exam link, so you will be get only 30 minutes time to complete the exam and to submit the MCQ exam, right? So you need to complete it on the Saturday itself. So the same marks will be reflected in your portal. So depending upon the marks you got in the exam, you will be receiving the certificate. So please don't forget to join on the Saturday session, as there is MCQ exam, and that link will be only posted in the Zoom portal, but not in the WhatsApp group, right? So please convey to your fellow faculty members and fellow participants the same thing. And coming Monday, that is on the 12th of this month, so there will be inaugural session of offline sessions. So first day, Dr. Madhav Rao is the speaker, coming from AIMS Mangalagiri, HOD of the Pharmacology Department, and he will be taking 2 sessions in the Monday morning session, and after that we'll be taking the lunch, and after that, so we have planned one industrial visit to all the faculty participants. So all of you must you see that you plan that you should attend the Monday session, inaugural session, and in that session I'll be telling you the guidelines about offline session and offline assessment also there, one offline assessment. So that offline assessment probably will be keep on next Friday, not this Friday, next Friday, next week Friday, you will be having offline MCQ assessment exam. And all the participants must take both online MCQ test as well as offline MCQ test. So then only that marks will be they will get average, and the average marks will be uploaded in your portal. So after uploading the marks and after uploading your answer scripts, that means Google, that means link of your exam, your response, you will be giving the responses now to the online exam. So after uploading the online responses of individual participant, so then ATAL in the ATAL portal you can generate your participation certificate. So that is a guideline I would like to bring to your kind notice. Dear participants, soon Mohan Raj sir will start last session, and it won't take much more time. Within 9 we'll wind it off. Thank you. Madam, sir has joined, madam.
No, sir, not yet, sir.
Okay, madam. Maybe sir will take more time. So within couple of minutes, sir will join, madam.
Sir joined, sir, just now.
Okay, okay, madam.
Madam, whether the slides are visible?
Yes, sir, slides are visible, sir.
I'm audible, right?
Yes, sir.
So what the very last section which we get into for today is regarding the regulatory guidelines for new drug approval process in terms of the United States, Europe, and India. So what few insights what we are aware already based on the past 3 days presentations. Just I'll summarize, and it will be also helpful for me to learn something from that. So regarding certain terminologies like NDA, IND. So in the clinical research or a trial, an application submitted to the respective regulatory authority for permission to market a new drug is called as new drug application. This permission, a sponsor submit preclinical and clinical test data for analyzing the drug information description of manufacturing procedures. So the different phases of trials, the preclinical study performed in mice, rat, rabbit, and monkeys. Phase one, human pharmacology trial. The objective was to estimate the safety and tolerability. Phase two is exploratory trial, which estimate the effectiveness and short-term side effect. Phase three is the confirmatory trial regarding the therapeutic benefit. Phase four is post-marketing trial. Studies done after the drug is being approved. So after the new drug approval received by the agency, it undergoes a technical screening, and this evaluation ensures that sufficient data and information have been submitted in each area to justify the filling of application. At the conclusion of the NDA, three possible actions can be sent by the reviewer to the sponsor, and they are not approvable, approvable, and approvable. So not approvable in this letter, the list of deficiency and explain the reasons will be made. Approvable means the drug can be approved but minor deficiencies. And it requires some correction, like a change of labels or some other commitment prerequisite for post-approval status. And the approval, it states the drug is approved. But if the action taken is either an approvable or not approvable, then the regulatory body provide applicant with an opportunity to meet with the agency and discuss the deficiency and how it can made beneficial for the next process. So this processing of the new drug approval varies from each company. So for marketing authorization application, which we say as MAA, a single regulatory approach is applicable to various countries. Is almost a very difficult task. Why? Because the standards differs from each and every country. So therefore, it is necessary to have a knowledge about regulatory requirement for marketing authorization application of each country. And the figure what we see here is the general regulation process for drug application. So now we have some points to be discussed, like approval process in the United States, Europe, and India. What are all the regulatory requirements and how it goes? So first and foremost, before getting into the requirement, we'll get a snapshot of the regulatory agencies in the United States, Europe, and India. So the very first is the United States. And the United States perhaps have the world's most stringent standard for approving any type of new drugs. And we do consider it is the most demanding regulatory in or across the globe. So if you take the hierarchy of the regulatory development in the United States, it was in 1820, the new era of United States of America drug regulation was started with the establishment of United States Pharmacopoeia, US. And a Congress was passed in 1906, the original Food and Drug Act, which required the drug must meet the official standard of strength and purity. And later on in 1937, due to the disaster called the sulfanilamide tragedy, the thalidomide disaster, the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act 1938 was enacted and added a new provision that new drug must be shown safe before marketing. Further, in 1962, the Kefauver-Harris Amendment Act was passed, which requires the manufacturer must prove the drug is safe and effective for the claim made in the label. Food and Drug Administration is responsible for conducting and promoting public health, like general drug approval process. FDA new drug approval process is also completion 2 phases: clinical trial and new drug approval process. And the FDA approval process begin only after the submission of investigational new drug application, the IND. So this is a flowchart of how the regulatory process in the United States for new drug approval goes on. So apart from the particular schematic algorithm, I have summarized how well it goes in the United States on the right side. So what the first and foremost is investigational new drug application filed to the FDA in order to start a clinical trial in human must showcase a safety profile as a report of preclinical trial. And the investigational new drug application should provide information of high quality and must justify the reason how well, what for it can be tested in humans. Almost 85% of the drug in the United States are subjected to clinical trial for which IND application must and should be filled. And this responsibility will be taken care of by the sponsor of the particular clinical trial. And the sponsor can make a pre-IND meeting to discuss the issues along with the FDA professionals. And they can discuss like the design of animal research, number 2, protocol for conducting the trial, chemistry, manufacturing process and quality standard to control of investigation new drug. And this type of provision is much appreciated in US FDA, where the sponsor comes to know the complete information about the study, and thereby the information which gathered will be more essential in writing the protocol or preparing go from. The next step is a clinical trial, phase 1, which may take more than 3 years maximum or 1 year minimum. The subject approximately of human 100, where we discuss regarding the safety profile and the kinetics of the drug. That is the focus of phase 1. Phase 2 trial takes nearly 2 years. And one day the phase 1 is passed, we get into phase 2. Here, the study will be performed on 300 approximate patients to evaluate the dosage, efficacy, and other safety issues. Evidences of effectiveness is well justified. We get into 3 to 4 years of phase 3 study. And this phase 3, we are aware, could be done in 3,000 people approximately, where it concentrates on the effectiveness of the formulation, but in different population. Dosage and chemical combination can be easily studied. Once a new drug application is being completed and filled, only when all these 3 phases have been successfully completed, which include animal study, human data study, incorporating pharmacokinetic of the drug, and the labeling justification in terms of manufacturing. Once the NDA has been ready, that will be reviewed by the CDER, Center for Drug Evaluation and Research team, will be evaluating the clinical, preclinical, risk ratio, benefit analysis, everything will be assessed by the scientists of the CDER. And if they conform, The new drug is relatively safe and effective and will not pose any untoward risk. It will not harm or injure the patient. The NDA is being filed and NDA is approved within 2 years after the process of CDER, and the innovative company is allowed to market the drug. The approval of an NDA is considered called as phase 4. Phase 4 file is very, very important, where all the extremities about the drug in terms of long-term effect studied, evaluated, and explained. This is about the drug approval process, which gets into United States. Very thing to get into Europe, where I have made only one phase of study. So actually, the drug approval process in Europe considered somewhat very complicated, not because it must get into European. So here I have given the explanation only decentralized process, not the centralized process or national requirement. So we have nearly 3 regulatory process in the European Union. Number 1 is decentralized, number 2 is centralized, and number 3 is nationalized drug approval process. So as far Europe is concerned, before our European Union, where the medical products are approved for marketing at the national level. So here, the mutual recognition process, that is, we have to follow both the decentralized and centralized process to get the approval of the medicine product. And the primary agenda of this procedure is to create a standard for all EU countries. So, and this was formulated after 1987 and under the aegis of CPMP, Committee for Proprietary Medicine Product, decided to nationalize the regulatory law. Further, this was being enacted with some replacement for the centralized procedure. And this centralized procedure will be giving the wide marketing authorization of all the countries of Europe. Similarly, as like US, you also a drug for approval has to undergo both the process of clinical trial and marketing authorization. And the purpose and phases of clinical trial are same as US FDA. So preclinical, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4. And the one difference, if at all we get into this, is a number of days of the trial in comparison to US FDA, where 210 days initially of the NDA for the approval of the body, that will be taken care by CHMP in terms of European countries. So particularly the more updated, upgraded drug approval process in India. So the Drug and Cosmetic Act 1940, rules of 1945 were passed by the Indian Parliament to regulate the import, manufacture, distribution, and sale of drugs and cosmetics. The CDSCO, abbreviated as Central Drug Standard Control Organization, and the Office of the Leader, the Drug Control General India, was established. And in 1988, the Indian government added Schedule Y to the Drug and Cosmetic Rule 1945. And this Y provides the guideline and requirement for clinical trial, which was further revised in 2005 with the global stature and the standard. So whenever we get into any purpose of a clinical trial, everything is Form 44 is subjected to be documented whenever the drug falls on schedule 1. And we have to follow rule 120A and the class of 2.4A of ANC 1940 and 1945B. We are getting into the basis of section 2.4B of schedule Y that's has to be followed for the phase 3 clinical trial. The demonstration of the efficacy and effectiveness has to be in relation to the rules of 1945, 120A, 120B, 120D, and toward the drug can comes into the market after this complex process given in Indian regulation. So as for consent, an application to conduct a clinical trial has to be submitted in terms of the data relating to the chemistry, the manufacturing, product control, the DCGI. And the DCGI evaluates the protocol for pharma vouchers and companies. Everything will be assessed in the ethical committee. DCGI. And phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4 will be performed. Particularly the phase 3 will be at the 3 to 4 centers with a minimum populations of 100 patients, 500 patients, which spread across 10 to 15 centers. And once these are all over, if you get into NDA application, the cooperating ones who respond must have the actual protocol to be filled in NDA approval. This approval, one document will be released for this one. This is the overall regulatory requirement of US, European, and India. So here, the benefit part of the regulatory, we depend highly on US and India are appreciated. Why? Because the agency is only one. So in US, it is US FDA, in India, it is DCGI, but in European Union, it is a multiple. Number 2, registration process is consent as a requirement. In US and India, we have only one system of registration. But in European Union, we have multiple registration like centralized, decentralized, mutual, and national. And application and the NDA is concerned on US. In Europe and India, we have MA, and approval timeline 18 months minimum. 12 months to 18 months in India, but the cost of it is very lot in terms of fee in the United States comparison to European, and is very less in terms of India, which is nearly 50,000. Presentation has to be made as a paper in India, not in US and European. US, it requires ECTD paper, and in European, only ECTD is appreciated. Thanks for listening regarding the regulatory requirements. So doubts if any?
Participants are having any doubts, you can directly ask, sir. Mike, sir.
Yes, madam. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your patience and given a brief explanation regarding the session.
Thanks a lot
Thank
for
you.
giving me an opportunity and share my
Thank. So you so giving. Thank you very much, sir. With your patience, you are given around 2 hours.
views.
Complete sessions is there. Thank you very much, sir. Any participants, any queries is there? Please ask to the sir.
Now I would like to request Dr. Sheikh Abdul Rahman, sir, Principal, Nirmala College of Pharmacy, to share few words about today's sessions. Principal sir.
Yes, madam. Thank
Please share
you.
few words.
Yeah, thank you, Shreya, madam. So, good evening, Mohan Raj, sir.
Good evening, sir. Good evening.
Sir. So, thank you, sir, for joining in the ATAL FDP, sponsored by ACTE.
Yes, sir. Thanks a lot, sir, for giving me an opportunity. After a long time, sharing the information online is somewhat difficult for me to communicate to. Thanks for the experience.
Yes, sir. Sir, of course, it is one of the an excellent topic, sir, which is need of the hour to the faculty members to update their knowledge in regards with the guidelines, ICH guidelines, European guidelines, and US guidelines. So it was a great opportunity to the faculty members, those who joined in this program. And sir, you have enlightened about the overview of the guidelines which are exactly required. And one more important point you stressed upon patient consent form. So when going for clinical trials, so that is also you have expressed. And I congratulate the organizing team members, Dr. Vinay Kumar sir, and co-coordinator Dr. Shreya madam, and today's chairperson Mr. Naik sir, and the faculty members whoever joined in this today's online program, and hope you will be continue attending the same program. So 2 more days are there, and today a little bit attendance is less. I could see here, and you have to maintain the attendance actually. Without maintaining the attendance as per the norms of the ASAT ATAL FDP, you may not receive the certificate. So here it is a 2 weeks program. So online and offline, 2 modes. So that is why I request you maintain the attendance, and you actually acquire the updated knowledge, what resource persons exactly they are delivering. So request once again the participants, the faculty participants, you please join in time and attend the total session. Thereby you are able to answer the questions which is going to be asked at the time of end of this online sessions. So of course the same live session it is also available in our Nirmala College of Pharmacy YouTube channel, so that if anybody so due to in the break time and in our right, so the continuous mode or network problems, so you can see the same today's the session in YouTube channel also, right? So once again I thank the resource person Mohan Raj sir. Thank you very much, sir. Joining in time, and not in time, you before early you have joined actually. So that is the commitment we could see you, Mohan Raj sir. So thank you. And Vinay Kumar sir, you share the message also in our participants group, like join in the join all the programs for maintaining the attendance, sir.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
So thank you, sir, for giving me this good opportunity.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Vinay Kumar, sir. Thank you.
Sir, sir, thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Sir, actually, thank you, sir, for accepting our request.
Sure.
And also within short time, you have prepared the slides and you have presented excellently, sir. Even though the timings are odd timings, so evening time, but according to ACT, sir, they have given the time slots from 7 to 9 only, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Otherwise, we could have organized it in morning session itself.
No problem.
So soon, sir, if time permits, and we'll keep offline session also, sir. We are
Sure.
waiting for your presence in our college.
Sure, sir. Thank you, sir.
Sir, as a token of gratitude, sir, I want to present you the resource person certificate, sir. So, madam, please display the
Yes, sir.
certificate. Please accept our certificate of appreciation, sir.
Sure, sir.
Yeah. Okay, sir. We'll post the certificate, sir, through mail, sir, to you
Thank you, sir.
through courier. And hope, sir, we'll meet again, sir, in the offline session.
Sure, sir. Sure.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you all the delegates for your attendance and joining the 3 hours ATAL FDP and spending your time for sharing your knowledge. And one small limitation, what I felt is, I hope, I was having a belief that there will be more interaction, so what I can gain some knowledge, but I have not found more amount of interactions. But it is a limitation of not the delegate, but maybe the platform of presentation. So online, I think,
Yeah, obviously, sir. That was the main limitation here.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Good night,
sir.
sir.
Good
Thank
night.
you, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah,
Thank you, sir.
dear
Thank you very
participant,
much.
don't leave without giving your attendance and filling the feedback form. So as a principal, sir, and also convener of the program, so just now expressed that without attendance, so you will not get a certificate. That is the main problem here. So the certificate you can download from your portal only. We are not issuing any certificate from our side. So for that, you need to attend minimum 75% of the sessions. I request all the participants, faculty participants, please convey this message to your fellow faculty members. And tomorrow we'll meet for the same time on the 7 o'clock in the evening with the session by the speaker, Dr. Satish. He is working as a senior clinical research coordinator in the Sinus Health, Hyderabad. So thank you for joining for today's session and hope it will continue in the coming 2 sessions. Thank you one and all. Good night, and please mark your attendance while leaving the meeting.